The back end of this business is not difficult. Most people have it all wrong. They're chasing the lifestyle, the money, and the closing. Where me, I chase the why, the list, and the contacting. I got really, really good at this part, like really, really good. And then I just had to learn this back stuff. A lot of people, they focus a lot on what they want their life to look like, how much money they want to make, right? This part, but they don't get good at this. They don't have anyone to call, they don't make phone calls, they don't build their inventory list. So what I would do is I would be like, all right, how do I add 25 new names to my list every month? I think everybody should have a goal to build a new top 25 list every month. A new fresh one. That's not even one a day. It's like vitamin prospecting, right? One a day keeps poverty away. So I would try and build a new top 25 list every month. I'd get lights out at the call, and I'd learn how to do a world-class presentation. And then everything from that you're gonna learn.
Steve, thanks for inviting us in, first of all. Thank you.
Of course.
I'm really curious about this, because this is the part I appreciate about this company as opposed to what I've seen in other corporations. So a large part of being a leader, Steve, is for people, is to build their belief in their capabilities, because this path is going to be really hard. Mm-hmm. How do you go about building belief into people when they feel like they've lost momentum?
Ooh, that's a tough one off the get-go. Yeah. Is it about building belief in your people, or is it about building belief in yourself? Like, is it more of a coaching question?
Yeah, you got it. Coach.
Like for your team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because that's our business.
Right.
We are leading a volunteer army. I always tell my friends from different companies, the best part about our business is when we put 400 people in a room, they're all there because they want to be there. You four are here because you want to be here. There's something compelled for you to be here. If I was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and I get on a Zoom call with all my employees, they're there because they have to be there. They're getting paid to be there. So I think that's an important question, because we need to learn how to lead a volunteer army. So how do you build belief in people? So let's back it up and talk about why people lack belief in themselves, right? Why do you guys think people lack belief in themselves? Or why do you think people lose momentum? What are just spitball some reasons? Conflict how?
Like someone conflicts your statement.
Okay,
like
yeah.
Saying negative things.
Negative things, yeah. You get negative feedback and they kind of push them back a bit. What else?
Maybe even results.
Results, the results aren't there. Yeah.
Objections. Just,
yeah.
Constant objections when you're trying to reach out to people, make phone calls and stuff.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of things I do. The first thing that I think is important that I'd write down is you got to help them keep things in perspective. You have to keep things in perspective, right? Carly, listen, it's not the end of the world. Your teammate quitting is not fatal. It's not final. It's not game over. It's not a sign from God. You don't have to flip some cards to see if you should still be doing this, right? When we're thinking so small and we're so beaten up and we're so scared, it's like everything's the last straw. It's like, it's like in a marriage, and I'm proud to say that I've continuously worked on my marriage. But when you get into a relationship where it's unhealthy, everything's like the last straw. One more time, I'm out of here. One more thing. It's like this. So people are thinking that way, right? They think that no is a sign that they shouldn't be doing this. So you got to keep things in perspective. You got to keep the goals in front of them. You can bring a horse to water. You can't make them drink, but you can salt their oats and make them thirsty. Salt their oats. Remind them why you're here. Okay, get close to them again, because chances are what happens is that when the fire dies down, the predators set in. Think of them when they first start. They're excited. They got their goals. Every goal is a log on the fire. I want to retire my spouse, log on the fire. Whew, I got goosebumps. I want to send my kids to a private school. I want to pay off my debt. I want to be somebody. Fire. And then they go away on their journey. They get a no. Teammate quits. Something cancels. And then the hot fire goes down. And when the fire dies down, the predators set in. All the negativity starts to surface and their doubts creep in. So you are the fire for that person. You got to keep them close to the fire, right? It's even like, just just loosely use Cam as an example, when you were going through some challenging things, and we've all been there, and I think I've spent the most time with Cam out of all 4 of you so far, you got to give them a bit of space, but you got to get close to them. And you got to remind them why they're here. And then the key is you have to identify their blessings. You have to remind them why they would be great here. And that's something that we miss, right? You have to remind people why they can win here, right? Because Jesse could think, oh man, like I'm a crane operator. What do I know about insurance? What do I know about this? And Jesse's like, man, like, and Jarrett told me this about him. He's like, man, like, I don't know if I've met anybody that cares more about people. Like, you care so much about people, right? Is that true? Yeah. For him, he always talks about like doing it right, and it's never been about the commission, although making money's got to be important. And that's how Jarrett described him. I said, tell me a few things about him. So that's why you're going to win, right? You're going to win for different reasons, right? You have a mind, like you're young, but you have a mind, and you've seen success before. Colton kind of told me a bit about your story. Okay. You've been successful, stealthy successful. Nobody knows about it. You've had success. You're a beast, right? So, I said, tell me about Eric. He's like, bro, this is what you don't know about him. He told me all these, I was like blown away. And when you're ready, you'll tell your story. You'll be blown away by it. But everybody has their own journey, right? Same as Amber. She's like, oh man, like Carly's got the biggest heart in the team, and she's nervous to be there. And I'm like, why do you think it is? She's like, because she just cares so much. So people don't remember those things when they're down. They're getting the shit kicked out of them. They're getting beat up. Their best teammate quit, this and that. You got to be in their ear. Ed told me a long time ago, he said, part of building a leader is you got to build the kind of relationship where you could be in their wedding party. Like there's some days, you guys, where my voice is the last voice they hear when the head hits the pillow. And there's some mornings that I'm the first voice they hear, right? And we're in this communication era. It could be an audio note, FaceTime. Hey, Carly, it's Steve. How you doing? Awesome. Yeah, I missed you at Wednesday. How you been? Oh, I'm good. Just going through some things. Yeah, we've been thinking about you. Hey, Liz, say hi to Carly. How you doing? Good. Yeah, everything good? Well, just, been beaten up a little bit. Oh, yeah, you know what? I totally get it. Yeah, what do you got going on tomorrow? Can you stop by? Can we grab a coffee? Can we meet up? Right? And then we meet, and then we reconnect. Because what happens when your belief is low? You feel like you're all alone. You ever felt lonely before? Where it's just you? Like, man, it's just me and the freaking phone, 900-pound phone. Maybe they're not getting support from home. Maybe everything you thought was working is no longer working, and you're all by yourself. So that's really when you need to get close to the fire. It's when you really need to get around your leader, but nobody is going to call you up. It doesn't work like that, right? None of you guys call me up. I have to go reach down to you guys. I have to get close, right? It wasn't Cam reaching out. It was me just making sure that this amazing human being is feels valued because he is, right? And you always got to put life ahead of business. It can't just be strategically for business. You always genuinely have to put people's interests in mind first. And I think that that's a big part of building belief back in people. Yeah, it's a long answer. But yeah, there's a lot of things there. Because just think, I think long term. Think 20 years down the road. Just imagine for a second you had a big team. What kind of culture do you want on that team? Right. Oh, I want like a family culture, like a family team where we feel like family. I want a safe environment. I want an entire team of people that are there for different reasons. I want people to feel inclusive. All walks of life, right? I want people to know they're valued. Okay, you got one teammate. Start with them. Remind them that they're a big part of your team. And, don't just call them up being like, where are you at? And what do you got on the books? And where's your production at? Call them up and say, hey, just checking in. How you doing? Good. Yeah, so building that connection, building that rapport. And then what's going to happen is that as they're going through challenges, they believe they have somebody in you that's going to walk them through it. And then when they trust you, then you can instruct them. It's hard to instruct somebody that doesn't trust you. You ever try to tell somebody something to do that doesn't trust you? You ever had a boss who you didn't like or trust tell you to do something? You're like,
Doesn't work.
Right. So you build that rapport, you build the relationship, you build the trust, and then when you ask them to do something, they're more likely to do it. And they trust you more than their negative boyfriend, than their uneducated spouse about this business. They trust you more about this than they do even about the people they've known their whole life. You're the authority on this in their life. So that's what I would focus on.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, good question. Jesse?
My first question is, what advice that you could give to up-and-comers that are struggling with their ability to close business?
Yeah, so people that are struggling with closing business. Well, this might seem like a simple answer. I'll try and make it deeper if I can, but if a 4-year-old can learn the words to happy birthday, I can teach somebody the language of closing. So we have a pipeline in our business. Do you imagine a pipeline? Okay. And we're in pipeline country, so you guys will know the answer. But what happens to a pipe if it's not pressurized? Nothing comes out the side, right? In order for a pipe to work, it's got to be pressurized. Okay, so think of our business like a pipeline. So what's at the start of the pipeline? It's like, well, why are you here? Okay, if you don't know why you're here, then it's not going to work. Okay, I know why I'm here. Next, well, I need an inventory list of people. Okay, then what? You got to make calls. I know people that know why they're here. They have a list, but don't make calls. If you don't make calls, you're missing a part of the pressurization of the pipe. You're making calls. Then what are you doing? You're getting a one-on-one meetings. So when I sit down, right, if I were mentoring you guys one-on-one, I would draw this out like this. And here's your pipe. And you got to take a magic carpet ride through your pipeline, right? Do you know why you're here? Do you have a list? Do you make calls? Do you do presentations? Do you gather info? Do you close? No, I don't close. So hold on. You know why you're here. You make calls. You have a list. You get on meetings. You gather info, but you don't close. So you got a hole right here in your pipe. So you fill this thing, you fill it, 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 and then you got an air leak there. And what comes as a result is like drip, 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 drip. Because after closing is money, income, and lifestyle. So what I would do, Jesse, is you have to patch that hole. You have to get around somebody who has a closing technique. You need to get with Jarrett or somebody he recommends, and you need to learn how to close. So I would sit down with you, and I know Jarrett would do the same. We would sit down with you, and we'd say, all right, show me your presentation, okay? Your hole might be in the presentation. It might be in the info gather. The closing business does not happen on the close. Closing business happens when you're gathering client information. So you think of it this way. When I'm going back to close a plan, I'm not going back to close them on it. I'm going back to do paperwork for what they already told me they wanted. So when I'm gathering info, the information gathering process is the most important part of closing. It's the most important part. So I'm gathering information. I'm like, Carly, so how do you guys feel about the amount of insurance you have? I'm right there. That's a closing question. Yeah, I feel like we need a bit more. Okay. So if I were to show you a better option for less money, would you guys be open to looking at that? Yes. Okay, great. Open to looking at it. Perfect. I see you have some investments here. If I could show you a better return with less risk, would you be open to moving them? Yeah, okay. Is there anybody else that would need to be part of that decision-making process? Yeah, well, my dad does all my finances. Okay, cool. Could you have your dad on the call next time? Right? Like, by the time I'm done my info gather, I have a 3-4 page document this is how I train my team. Carly should be able to take this info gather, drop it on my desk. I should be able to build a plan without asking her any further questions, and I should be able to go back and close that plan for that client, not even have been on that meeting. So the technique, there's a technique to closing, and it happens in the info gather. A lot of people, what they do is they do the presentation, they gather information, and they go back and try and close. I gotta close this up. A-B close, and what's the pen trick where you drop the pen and sign, there's 3 copies. Like all these like weird sales techniques. No, I'm closing in my presentation on how important insurance is. I'm closing in my presentation on how few North Americans know this education. I'm closing that they're open to a better option for insurance in the info gather. I'm closing the money move in the info gather. I'm closing them on learning about their FIN number and then at the end, I do a quick recap. I say, all right, Garrick, just before we go, I'm going to spend a lot of time on this plan. I'm really excited about it. Probably going to take me like 3-4 hours to build a great plan. While I'm building this, could you keep in mind some people that you might, be a fit for the referral side, right? And then I say, listen, so just to do a recap, looks like I'm going to come back with some options for better insurance, right? There might be something we can do for the debt. Definitely going to get that money, probably working harder for you. When I come back, right, those are some of the things that we're going to be discussing. And if you see value, right, any reason we wouldn't be able to move forward? No, looks good, Steve. Awesome, really looking forward to it. So then you get back on the carryback, and you're like, hey, Carly, just to do a quick recap of what we talked about last time. Talked about you be open to seeing some insurance, right? Okay, good, I have that prepared. You were open to potentially a better return with less risk. Actually, I found one, you're gonna love it. And then lastly, you had about an extra $1,000 a month towards your goals, right? I have a plan for you to save $500 to $700 of that. It's gonna get you way closer to retirement. Really excited about that. Any questions on that before I get into it? Okay, cool. So then you're basically showing them what you've done and you're doing paperwork. So now, you guys, I trained all of your leaders. Your leaders do it very similar, but we use the different language here and there. At the end of the day, closing starts on the initial presentation, Jesse, on the gathering info, on the pre-close, and then when you come back, that's when you're just basically sharing with them what you've done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have to go to school on it. You have to learn it. You have to learn the language. A lot of people they don't spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. People say, oh, just give me the information gathering sheet. I'll just fill it out. No, it's not. No, there's a psychology to it. So really study it and go to your leader. You guys all have great leaders, right? But there's also other leaders in the office who are killing it. There's marketing directors making $100,000 a year in this office, right? I mean, you guys all are blessed. You have some of the top senior brokers on my team. But I would go to my leader. I'd be like, show me how to close. Show me how to do it, and then ask them. I say, hey, do you mind if I go chat with so and so I can get some tips from them, and go interview 3 or 4 closers, and go from there. That make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you have to patch that hole, right? You don't need to get better at calls. You don't need to get better at this. You have to get better at this, and maybe it starts on the presentation. If every time you come back and they say, oh, you've given me a lot to think about, you're saying too much. If every time you come back, they're like, well, I don't really know if we need more insurance, you obviously didn't disturb them in the initial enough. They didn't commit to really wanting insurance on the info gather, so you're never gonna close it. Missing the sale starts in the first meeting, not the carryback. You have to get really good at that. And the better you get, the more and I'm in my presentation, I'm on the 6th, the wheel slide, I know right there if they're open to having more life insurance, right? So anyway, long answer, but just more reps and more time with your leader. Yeah. Carly.
All right. So this is probably my top question. My self-imposed perfection makes me think I must have everything perfect, including that I have to know everything. I know this is impeding my growth and causing me to doubt my capabilities. What kind of advice can you give someone that is always trying to seek perfection?
Yeah. In my experience, when people that seek perfection never really get started on anything. It's like I coach a lot of people to get on social media. The number one thing that people tell me on social media is they haven't made the perfect video yet. They haven't crafted the perfect post. And my mentor told me a long time ago, done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. So you got to remember, Carly, not only are you going to learn to do this, but you're going to teach others how to do it. So if everybody that you're coaching and mentoring took on that perfection mindset, nobody would be doing anything. Mm-hmm. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Think about building a house. Building a house is a constant course correction, right? You build the blueprint, you hire the contractor, and then you hope that not everything falls apart. Right, plumbing is off, the framing is off. They got a new roofer quit. Well, the deck isn't in the ROR report. We have to make some changes. So Brian Tracy wrote a book called Flight Plan. It'd be a really good book for you. And he talks to this concept of an airplane is off course 99% of the time. When you're in an airplane, it doesn't fly straight. It flies like this. It's always like sometimes you feel it like, oh, they just made a little shift. Yeah, because you don't fly straight. You fly like this, right? So a lot of times our perfection is it turns into like procrastination. And it's like, well, I want to be perfect on the phone. But really it's an excuse for us not to make calls. So it's, you just have to get started. You just have to remember it's never going to feel perfect. It's never going to, in fact, the only time it's going to feel perfect is when you're not moving. When you're not making calls and you're not leading a team, everything's perfect. You have to create a mess. You have to go create a mess. Like, it's like building an entrepreneurship's a mess. It's always a mess. The more apps you close, you got to have an administrative mess. The more teammates you recruit, the more people you're going to have that need you for licensing, and you have a couple people that doubt themselves. And so my trainer always told me, stumble forward, stay confused. Stumble forward, stay confused. Like, it's never going to all be together. You're never going to have it all together. If you don't feel a little bit out of control, you're not moving. You should always feel a little bit of overwhelm, because what happens is that as you're growing, it's making you feel uncomfortable because you don't have it all together. Like, oh my God, I got to slow down. I got to build systems. I got to get organized. I need a labeler. I need a label, right? Hey, you come on Saturday. You know what? As soon as I label my files, I'll be in training, right? It's like, no, you have to stumble forward, stay confused. It's entrepreneurship, right? Tony Robbins talks about there's 6 basic human needs. Human need 1 is, and everybody has a different mix. Human need 1 is the need for certainty and structure. So I don't know if you're that kind of person, but a lot of people, they love structure, they love certainty. These are people that have a hard time leaving in 9 to 5. They don't mind every day looks the same. They want to know everything that's happening. The second kind of person is the variety person. These are the entrepreneurs. These are the risk takers. These are the wild people that want every day to look different. So you have to remember that you're going to be leading a team of all different kinds of people, okay? You just can't stop moving your feet. Because in life, you're either growing or you're dying. Do you guys know stagnation doesn't exist in life? You're either growing or you're dying. That's it. Stagnation is a myth. You ever see a pond that doesn't have water flowing into it and out of it? You know what they call that? They call it a slough. I remember I was going to buy a house in Royal Oak about 15 years ago, and the realtor's like, oh, it backs onto like a beautiful pond. It's amazing. I get out there. The house is like right here. I get out there. It's like, what happens to a body of water when there's no fresh water? What happens to it? The top layer.
Film?
There's a film that builds. It was like mosquitoes. There was film. This is what happens to us. When we're not moving, when we're not growing, when we don't have new things coming into our business, we start to stink because we're stagnant. Our mindset stinks. Our mindset is stagnant. We grow that film, right? These agents that were excited and happy and positive are now like negative and removed, because there's nothing new coming into their business, their life. They're not growing. They're stagnant. In fact, they're dying. So you have to keep your feet moving. You need more people quitting. You need more policies not going through, right? The person who has the most people quitting in this room is me. I have the most people. The person who had the most clients cancel last month in my team was me for sure. I don't even know who they were, but I know, because bigger the team, the more clients. Doesn't mean the percentage is higher, right? If 1 out of 50 clients cancels their policy, but I'm writing 600 sales, I had 12 clients cancel last month. So we can shy away from everything not being perfect, or we can say, okay, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to lean on my leadership, but I'm going to stumble forward and stay confused. And the more you can operate outside of your comfort zone, the better off you're going to be, right? So you got to get uncomfortable. You got to get out of that comfort zone. You got to grow and move, and all good things come. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. There will be no, like, it's funny, like I think people look at our team like, man, like, seems like a perfect team. Like, great team and great environment and people making money and all this stuff. I'm like, it's like a team of misfits. We're all misfits here. Like, I'm not perfect. My God. My wife will tell you some days I'm a disaster. But it's a perfect mess. It's a perfect mess. It's exactly what we prayed for. You're a mom, right? Yeah. You're not perfection at all. Perfection doesn't exist at home. It's a disaster. Most days, I mean, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Kids are amazing. I love my kids. But throughout the day, it's a mess. This kid, that kid, right? The puking and coming home. And yeah, there's those moments where you look around like, this is great. But there's always something going on. It's always a bit of a mess, right? So same as your business. Don't let perfection be the excuse to not move forward. Yeah, absolutely.
Great question.
Yeah, oh, so good. Eric, how about you, brother?
All right, so this is also my small and myself being fairly new to the industry and business. Yeah, I'm curious. With all the value and experience you gained over your 18 years, if you had to start it from complete scratch, right? Basically, put yourself in my shoes. What skills would you try to nail down first?
Oof. Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah, if I started from scratch, I would literally go back. I would learn the fundamentals. Okay, so if I started from scratch, first thing I would do is I would really get in touch with my why. Okay, I think a lot of times, you guys, it's like I always say there's 2 dates in WFG. The day you start and then the day you figure out why, right? It's just like a twist on the Mark Twain quote. A lot of people are here for a year or two before they really figure out why they're here. A lot of people hang around and then a year and a half in, a loved one dies. They're like, oh my God, I need to do this now. Or they're here 2 years part-time and they get laid off. And they're like, oh shit, now I have to do it. The sooner that you can really get excited about something here, doesn't matter what it is, making money, leading a team, being somebody on Colton's team, being a flag carrier for the SEDT, like speaking on stage for 10 minutes in Edmonton, the sooner you get in touch with why you're here, the faster you're gonna run towards the pain, which is doing the business, right? You gotta get out of your comfort zone, but there's gotta be something that's gonna compel you to get out of your comfort zone. The second thing I would do is I would get lights out at approaching contact. Lights out. 90% of this business at your guys' level is adding names, making calls, setting up appointments. Like lights out. If you knew that if you believed that everybody you called would say yes, we'd call more people. Think about that. If you knew exactly why you were here and you had the belief that every time I call someone, they're gonna say yes, you'd feel unstoppable. So you gotta get lights out on the phone as good as you can, right? Don't let it stop you. How do you get good on the phone? You just make more calls, you make mistakes, you make calls with your trainer in the room. I would get really good at setting appointments and doing presentations. The back end of this business is not difficult. Most people have it all wrong. They're chasing the lifestyle, the money, and the closing. Where me, I chase the why, the list, and the contacting. I got really, really good at this part, like really, really good. And then I just had to learn this back stuff. A lot of people, they focus a lot on what they want their life to look like, how much money they want to make, right? This part, but they don't get good at this. They don't have anyone to call, they don't make phone calls, they don't build their inventory list. So what I would do is I would be like, all right, how do I add 25 new names to my list every month? I think everybody should have a goal to build a new top 25 list every month. A new fresh one. That's not even one a day. It's like vitamin prospecting, right? One a day keeps poverty away. So I would try and build a new top 25 list every month. I'd get lights out at the call, and I'd learn how to do a world-class presentation. And then everything from that you're gonna learn. But if you can't figure out why you're here, you aren't, people always ask me, well, how do you meet people and I'm like, there's people all around us. It's like your goal should be to answer this question. Who are you outside of this business? Who are you? Well, I have kids, so I have my son's hockey. So I'm somebody to that hockey team. I could just be a parent. I'm an assistant coach. I'm somebody. I'm hopefully, positive dad. I'm consistent. I show up. Then some people have a church family. Who are you at church? Who are you? I'm a good person. And I show up. I help people. Okay, cool. What else? What do you do? Play basketball on Friday nights. Okay, who are you in that group? I'm a good person. You got to try and be involved with different groups of people early on, because you're going to run in your immediate market. So who are you in different environments? And all that to answer the question of how do I build a top 25 list every single month, right? You're not going to do it from behind your computer. You're not going to do it by not getting in a comfort zone. I would focus on staying fired up, building massive inventory, one a day, 20 to 5 a month. See, if Carly was obsessed with adding 25 names a month to her list, she'd get 2 or 3 referrals every appointment. She would. She wouldn't stop asking. Hey, just before I leave you, does anybody come to mind who you think would be benefit from this education? Okay, cool. Hey, what did you guys think of this plan? Wasn't it great? Yeah, I'm super glad you guys got insured. Hey, while I'm here, I don't cold call, I don't door knock. Would you mind helping me out? Yeah, what do you need? I'd like 5 families that I could reach out to and just give the same exact conversation to. Okay, yeah, no problem. Here's 5. She goes home, she's like, all right, I added 7 this week. Oh, 13. Oh, I got 12 more. But obsessed with inventory, obsessed with adding names, obsessed with the front end of the business. Most people are sitting and going, I don't even want to call. It's because you're not obsessed with the front end of the business. So yeah, fundamentals, front end of the business. Yeah, you can do anything you want here if you focus on those first 2 or 3 things. Yeah, biggest reason people quit is they don't make any money. And they don't make money, they don't make money because they're not closing business. They don't close business because they're not gathering info. They're not gathering info because they're not doing presentations. Well, they're not doing presentations because they're not making calls. Well, why aren't they making calls? Is it they don't have people to call, or they don't spend time on it? They don't make calls because they don't know why they're here. Oh, they don't know why they're here. Oh, so why? Yeah, if you don't know why you're here, why would you get uncomfortable to do all this stuff? For sure. So once a week, I walk somebody through this pipeline. Where's your hole? Where's your hole? It doesn't need to be super complicated. So we got a few more minutes. Does anybody have a follow-up question that they'd like to ask?
You know what, maybe something that kind of ties into what we're talking about, Steve. Because I had one tied around senior partners.
Yeah.
So you've promoted so many, X amount of senior partners, and I can imagine how exciting it is for them to come into a new position, being under your training. But I imagine with, every new step and taking on more responsibility, there's concerns there because, it's a new level of responsibility.
Yeah.
What have those concerns been with people stepping into a senior partner position in your brokerage, and how would you coach them through it?
Yeah, it's funny. Most of the concerns with going SMD are happening from people that are MD, that are worried about SMD. But once you go SMD, you're prepared. You're prepared. The only real difference is administratively. Once you go SMD, you're responsible for that base shop. But I want to tell you, the journey that you have to go through between here and SMD is going to ultimately prepare you to be an SMD. When you guys go SMD on this team, you will be the most prepared SMDs in the entire company. We over-prepare you guys. There's not another team, and this isn't just about me, this is about your leaders. There's not another team in this company that are running these kind of meetings with associates and training associates this early on in their career. If you guys lean into our business and our CFT program and your leadership, and lean into me and Jared and Colton and Amber and all these great leaders, and you come to training, when you get to SMD, you're going to say what every other SMD says. I don't feel any different. Nothing's really changed. And it's actually a letdown. The air gets let out of their tires for a month because they're like, man, I was expecting something crazy and all this new responsibility. And it's called SMD-itis, where they take a month off mentally because they were so concerned about all this stuff. My MDs are running their team like SMD teams, like top SMD teams, right? We're going to teach you how to get an assistant at an MD level. We're going to teach you how to hand off the paperwork. We're going to teach you how to run a meeting. I'm going to teach you how to run a CFT program. I built an entire course on how to run a CFT program. It's a 30-page document on the GTU that all your SMDs are using. Notice how they're all rolling out CFT programs? Because I wrote a 30-page document on how to run a CFT program. Step 1, hold an emergency meeting. Sound familiar? Step 2, run another meeting with everyone that's committed. Step 3, get them all to apply. Step 4, start testing. Step 5, do a once a week CFT call. Here's how to run the call. Step 6, get them to be accountable. Here's what they're accountable to. Step 7, step 8. So by the time that you guys get to SMD, everything that you need to learn to be an SMD, you'll be there and way beyond. So the key is to get yourself there. Yeah, the whole SCDT system is set up for you get there, you're ready to go. Yeah. Because if I were to tell you all the challenges you have at SMD, you wouldn't understand them because you don't understand challenges at MD yet. Right? It's MD 100K, you're going through different challenges. How do I get as an assistant? How do you hire an assistant in WFG? Do you part-time? Do you give them like a percentage of your applications? Right? How do you talk to a teammate who's been licensed but not making, like, there's so many little fun little things you're gonna learn between now and SMD that if I were to write a whole list, you'd be like, oh shit, is it worth it? Bro, your capacity is gonna go from here to handle problems. Your guys' capacity to handle problems is gonna get way bigger, right? Right now, Carly might get discouraged by a no, but when she goes SMD, she's gonna think no different of a licensed teammate quitting. A licensed teammate quitting is gonna feel the same at SMD as you getting a hard no on the phone is today. I'm at the point where I lose SMDs. They get divorced, some of them make bad life decisions. You're like, oh my God, SMDs quit? Yeah, we have 70 plus SMDs in our downline. We lose SMDs. Not a lot, but you lose one. Losing an SMD, now if it was one of my brothers or sisters, it would hurt. But losing an SMD now feels like losing one of your top licenses at associate. But you can't wrap your head around that right now because you can't even see SMD. So the idea of losing one would lead you to anxiety. You see what I'm saying?
100%, yeah.
I had lunch with Dean Graziosi. You know who Dean Graziosi is? He's a big influencer in the personal development space. I had lunch with him and Ed a few years ago at Arte. And he goes, Steve, you know what your problem is? I was like, what? He says, you need to pray for bigger problems. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, it's just that as your life gets bigger, you have bigger problems. You need to pray, you need to not just pray for bigger problems, you need to pray for the capacity to handle bigger problems, right? It's like my first Hawaii, I was around the lobby bar and I was, just got there, I was brand new SMD and I'm drinking, back then I drank two-fisting and one of the SMDs goes, one of the CEOs goes, you're not in business until your first SMD quits. And I was like, I'm like, what? I have an SMD that's gonna quit? And then Swan Wynn, who's got 20,000 licenses, making 25 mil a year, turns around, he's double fisting, he goes, he says, you're not in business until you have a CEO quit. And I was like, I couldn't even see CEO. And I was like, oh my God, my life is over. This is so hard. But I'm like, I get TVC and I'm like, yeah, it's nothing. Like, it's life, shit happens. Wow. Yeah. So your capacity is going to increase to handle these big problems that you're so worried about that's holding you back from committing to being a leader, right? So just focus on getting through the next level, getting to that next step, casting vision for SMD, leaning into your leadership, showing up to training. And I promise you, by the time you guys go SMD, you will be fully prepared to be an SMD. You'll have 99% more preparation than anybody else in this company. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Very cool, thank you.
Well, I appreciate you guys being here. Yeah, what awesome questions.